Shalom Haverim and hello friends. Good to be with you this Sunday morning or whenever it is you're watching. I'm wondering if anybody out there knows the answer to this. What are the two words in the English language that when placed side by side contain the most letters? So I'll say that again. In the English language, which two words when placed side by side contain the most letters? The answer is post and office. Post office contains a lot of letters. All right. So that has absolutely nothing to do with today's sermon. There was a time whenever I tried to find jokes that had to do with our message, and you know what? That ship has sailed. So actually, what we're going to do today is we're going to have a bit of a history lesson. I could hear you cheering from here. Yeah, I know some people really like history. And the reason we're having a history lesson today is because today is Reformation Sunday. Reformation Sunday is a day that we commemorate Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses, Theses, to the door of the church in Wittenberg. So Martin Luther wrote up all these critiques and these statements that he had about the church, and he goes and he posts them in this very public place. This is a place where it was common to post kind of statements or thought-provoking ideas. He posted these 95 Theses for the church to consider, critiques of the church. Remember, there was a unified church at that time. And one of the things that he critiqued was the selling of indulgences. Indulgences were these pieces of paper certified by the church. If you bought these, you paid money to the church, they would give you this indulgence. And essentially what you could do with these indulgences, according to the church at the time, was you could buy someone's soul out of purgatory. So if you had a loved one who had recently passed on, you could pay money to the church. They would give you this piece of paper to buy your friend's soul out of this punishment. I understand why Martin Luther had a problem with that. It's not biblical. There's no reason to think that would work. So he complained about it. Now, I do think that would be an excellent way to raise money because, what better way to raise funds than to promise some sort of forgiveness and moving your family members into heaven. And now that I'm thinking about it, we could use a new roof here on the church. So if you just would mail your checks to 2405 3rd, no. We also take PayPal. No, that's not what the point is. No, it's almost insane to me to think that the church had moved to that point, selling indulgences so that you could get your loved ones, your friends, out of purgatory. I think Martin Luther was very right to protest those kinds of abuses from the church. So that is why we celebrate Reformation Sunday. It was October 31st, 1517, when Luther nailed those theses to the door. So the last Sunday of every October, we celebrate. It was just over 500 years ago. Now, there were three main reformers that we commonly think of in the church. Obviously, Martin Luther, another being John Calvin, and the third being Ulrich Zwingli. Those of you in the Mennonite or Anabaptist tradition may have heard of Zwingli. He led kind of the Swiss Reformation. And he was a very popular Bible teacher and instructor. Zwingli was actually a Bible leader with a group of people, including Conrad Grebel. Conrad Grebel was one of the first Anabaptists. So Grebel learned from Zwingli as a part of this movement. Now, as I was doing some research for today, I found an interesting story about Zwingli. So remember, the Reformation starts in 1517. In 1519, Ulrich Zwingli got sick. He got very sick. He contracted what we know today as the Bubonic plague. Now, the Bubonic plague killed an estimated 50 million people in the 14th century. And while Zwingli was sick with the plague, he wrote a number of hymns. Now, it was common for theologians, like Luther wrote hymns, Zwingli wrote hymns. I'm not sure if Calvin wrote hymns or not. But I came across this hymn from Zwingli when he was affected by the bubonic plague, and it's titled, "Lord God, Help in This Trouble." It can be found in some hymnals to this day. It's commonly referred to as the plague song. And for some reason that's funny to me, like the plague song. But the song itself, let me read a little bit from verse 2. Zwingli writes, "Console me, Lord God, console me. The illness increases, pain and fear seize my soul and body. Come to me then with thy grace, O my only consolation." He continues, "My tongue is dumb, it cannot speak a word. My senses are all blighted. Therefore is it time that thou my fight conductest hereafter? Since I am not so strong that I can bravely make resistance to the devil's wiles and treacherous hand, still will my spirit constantly abide by thee, however he rages." I'm not sure what that all means, but you see his struggle, his pain, and his suffering. Now, I'm not a strong history buff, but I tend to forget that the bubonic plague and the Protestant Reformation, that these things overlapped. And I try to picture what it would have been like to live at that time. And this it'd have been scary. You had this major pandemic going on. People were getting sick. People were dying. People like Zwingli here, he's not sure if he's going to make it. People had to keep themselves in isolation. They didn't leave their homes. It was a time of upheaval in the church, people questioning what was right and what was wrong. What should we do? Can you imagine living in such a time as that? Oh yeah. We also have a pandemic. We also have a time of upheaval in the church and questioning and confusion. All of these things are happening now. Now, as scary as that must have been to live through, I think that something good did come out of it. The church did reform. Not only did these Protestant churches rise up and new churches were begun, but the Catholic Church stopped selling indulgences. That's a good thing. The Catholic Church made a lot of changes in the way they did church, the way they did business, the way they were in the rest of the world. Major changes came out of this experience. Good things came out of this experience. So let's move it back to the year 2020. And I'm looking around and, I'm sitting in an empty sanctuary right now. I find myself looking for positive signs. I don't know, I'm not always an optimist. But I'm looking for positive signs. And today I at least thought, hey, could be worse. At least it's not the bubonic plague. I have fears that these pews may never be filled again. I have fears that the church that I love will never be the same. The things that I miss the most, things like handshakes. I miss shaking hands. Handshakes and hugs and potlucks and singing. These things aren't going to be a part of the church for some time. These are things that I don't want to lose. But I think that maybe we are living through another Reformation. And I think just like the last one 503 years ago, that something good can come out of this as well. And I think about the positive experiences that I've had. For the last 7 months, I've been posting videos of my sermon online every week. And I joke around, did you know that tens of people watch my sermon every week? Tens of people. Not hundreds, but tens. But these are sometimes people that otherwise wouldn't go to church. People who wouldn't hear the good news of Jesus, his message of love, reconciliation, grace, and forgiveness. Something good can come of this. I think that this is a new medium for getting the message out there. And maybe people will realize through all of this, not just the people that have never come to a church, but people that usually come on Sunday mornings, maybe people will start to realize just how much we need one another. Just how interconnected every aspect of our life is. We're seeing it more and more every day. We need each other. I am convinced now more than ever that we need God and we need one another. The entire story of the church is that God can bring something good out of something bad. I mean, think about it. That's the entire message. What's the very worst thing that could happen? Well, I don't know. God could come to earth as a person. He could live a perfect life, teach perfectly, love people perfectly, and then the people kill him anyways. That's like the worst possible scenario, right? Oh, we actually teach that. God came as Jesus and did all those things. Worst thing he could do would be kill him. But God brings something good out of that. Out of death, God brings new life. Out of crucifixion, God brings resurrection. The death of Jesus led to something nobody else could have anticipated. So today, this history lesson, I want to remind you that the last Reformation, 503 years ago, took place during a pandemic. Now, that doesn't mean that God caused that pandemic, and it doesn't mean that God caused this one. But I do believe that we follow a God who brings good things out of the bad, that God can make something better happen for us. All right, my friends, go out and love one another.